The black silence of space was broken by a single sound. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even constant. It was just there, a slow, repeating pulse, like the beat of a deep and ancient heart far from Earth. In the cold dark of the Kuiper Belt, the Helios Array listened. It had listened for decades, searching for whispers from distant worlds. It had heard solar storms, comets tearing themselves apart, and the far-off murmur of collapsing stars. But it had never heard this. The first pulse came at 2:17 coordinated, universal time. Then again at 2:31, exactly 14 minutes apart. Each time it came. It was faint at first, then stronger, like something was moving closer. Dr. Anya Patel, head of the Deep Space Monitoring Team, leaned over her console, her eyes fixed on the waveforms. She checked her equipment twice. She called for a second. Reading, she made sure nothing was broken, no glitch in the system, no random cosmic noise. But every test said the same thing. The signal was real. It was not natural. She stared at the repeating waveform. Inside the steady rhythm of the pulse, there was a second, hidden code. Subtle. Variation in frequency. Deliberate. Intentional. Whoever sent this wanted it to be found. By 3 o'clock, the room was filled with quiet panic. Her team spoke in low voices, afraid to break the strange weight in the air.
Anya didn't believe in omens, but something about the signal made her uneasy.
It didn't feel like an invitation. It felt like a warning. The signal wasn't coming from one fixed point. Every pulse came from a slightly different location, like something was moving. Fast.
Owls?
Whatever it was heading toward the solar system. At 5:45, the news reached the United Earth Defense Command in Geneva. The message was brief. Unidentified deep space signal. Regular intervals. Source unknown. Possible hostile origin. General Marcus Rios read the report twice, then looked. Out his office window, the sun was just rising over the Alps, casting long shadows across the snow. He hated shadows. They hid things. He ordered a classified briefing. Only 12 people were invited. When Anya entered the room, she noticed the guards at the door. Soldiers, both armed, both watching her like she might be carrying the signal inside her. The table was long and black, lined with military brass, scientists, and politicians. The president of the United Earth Council sat at the far end. Her hands folded tight. Anya loaded the waveform on the large display. The room was silent, except for the slow, deep thump of the pulse. It seemed to echo inside the chest of everyone. There. This is no natural occurrence, she said. It's a transmission. Intelligent. It carries a hidden data pattern. What's the message? General Rios asked. Anya hesitated. It's not language. It's numbers. A sequence. It's counting down. Someone whispered a curse. How long? The president asked. If the pattern continues. 72 hours, Anya said. General Rios leaned back in his chair. 72 hours to what? Right. Anya said quietly, is what we don't know. The president's voice was calm but cold. Then we wake the Titan. The Titan was Earth's last and greatest defense, the Aegis Prime, a warship so large it could carry its own fleet of drones, its own factories, its own storms. Built during the last interplanetary war, it had never been used. It had slept in the Lagrange Force shipyard for 20 years. A silent fortress drifting in darkness when the activation order came. Thousands of engineers and soldiers swarmed over its black hole. Lights flickered on for the first time in decades. Deep inside, reactors began to hum, flooding the ship with power. In her quarters at the Luna Command Station, Captain Rhea Torres was packing when the knock came. She already knew what the order would be. First contact? She asked when Rios entered. Maybe, he said. Or last. Rhea had served during the siege of Europa, back when humans fought humans. She had seen cities burned to ash, oceans, frozen in minutes. She had promised herself she would never stand on the edge of war again, but now the edge was calling. By the time she stepped onto the Aegis Prime's bridge, the ship felt alive like it had been waiting. The crew moved with quiet urgency. The massive view screens showed the Helios array's position, the plotted path of the approaching signal, and a bright red countdown clock. 70 hours. 49 minutes 12 seconds. The first pulse came through the ship's comm systems, deep, slow, uncomfortably human in rhythm. Then the second pulse arrived. Faster, only 13 minutes apart, distance decreasing, the sensor officer said. Object is accelerating. Anya Patel's voice came through the secure channel from the array. Captain, you need to hear this. We've decoded part of the embedded data. Rhea's eyes stayed on the view screen. Tell me. It's a star map, Anya said. It shows dozens of points. It's all matching locations of known alien civilizations, and every one of them is crossed out. On the screen, the map appeared. System after system was marked with a faint slash of red. Some were close. Others were hundreds of light years away. How many? Rhea asked. 43, Anya said. Her voice was tight. The closest is just 12 light years from Earth. No survivors. We've checked the records. The pulse came again, louder now, sharper, almost impatient. On Earth, the news hadn't been released. The public still thought it was a scientific anomaly, a harmless blip from deep space. They didn't see the quiet military buildup. They didn't see the Titan warship preparing to leave orbit. They didn't see the clock ticking down toward zero. The Aegis Prime undocked from the shipyard with a deep metallic groan. Its engines lit up the darkness, pushing it away from the safety of Earth. On the bridge, Rhea looked over her crew. They were ready, or they were pretending to be ready. She couldn't tell the difference anymore. The pulse came again now. Just 12 minutes apart, in the sensor room, an ensign frowned. Captain, I think it's turning toward us. The bridge went silent. The pulse came again, 11 minutes apart. Rhea didn't blink. Full scan. I want eyes on whatever's out there. But the scan returned nothing. No ship, no asteroid, no energy signature. Just the pulse, growing stronger. Anya's voice came through again. Captain, I think I understand now. It's not just counting down to arrival. It's marking each approach. Every time the pulse shortens, it means it's closer to its target. What's the target? Rhea asked, though she already knew. Silence. Then Anya said, Earth. Outside the bridge windows, the cold black of space seemed to press closer. The Titan warship's massive cannons rotated slowly, tracking nothing but darkness. The pulse came again, 10 minutes apart. Somewhere, far out in the void, something was moving fast. Faster than anything human? Faster than light, by any known measure. It was heading straight for home. The crew didn't speak. It just watched the countdown clock tick away, each second loud as a heartbeat. Rhea stood in the center of the bridge, her hands tight on the railing. Her voice was calm when she finally spoke. Set course for intercept. The Aegis Prime's engines roared, a deep sound that filled the bones of the crew. The great warship turned toward the unknown. Toward the thing that had silenced 43 civilizations. Toward the pulse that was now just 9 minutes apart. No one said it aloud, but every mind on that ship knew the same truth. Whatever. Sent. That signal had never been stopped. And now, Earth's turn had come. The pulse came again. 8 minutes. It was already too close. The next pulse hit like a wave, rolling through the Aegis Prime's hull. It wasn't sound, not exactly, more like pressure inside the skull, a vibration in the bones. The crew winced, some pressing hands to their temples. Lights flickered. Power fluctuation. The chief engineer called out from the lower deck. Pulse is messing with the field harmonics. You've never seen anything like it. Rhea steadied herself. Can we shield against it? Not unless we know what it is, he said. And we don't. The ship accelerated, closing the gap toward the projected origin point. The stars stretched into thin silver lines as they moved at near light speed. The Aegis Prime's sensors swept the void layer after layer, searching for anything solid, but there was still nothing. On the come line, Anya's voice was tight. Captain. I ran another analysis. I don't think the signal is aimed at us like a beam. I think it's everywhere. A wave. Space itself is carrying it. How's that possible? Rhea asked. Not possible, Anya said. Unless something's using subspace like an ocean and we're just in the water. The crew didn't like that image. Another pulse came now, 7 minutes apart. The navigator's hands shook as he updated the intercept course. At this rate, the source will reach Earth in less than 50 hours. Rhea's mind moved quickly. What happens if we catch it before it reaches Earth? Unknown, the science officer said. Don't even know what it is. That's why we're going to find out. The Titan warship surged forward, her massive bulk moving like a predator. The deep hum of the engines filled the corridors. Crew members strapped in, securing stations, running silent checks on weapon systems that hadn't been used in decades. Then, the first reading appeared. The sensor officer's voice trembled. Captain, I've got a blip. Everyone froze. Size? Rhea asked. Small. No. Wait. Large. Enormous. The readings keep shifting. On the main screen, a faint distortion shimmered against the black backdrop of space like heat haze over desert sand, except it was the void itself bending. The distortion moved. The next pulse slammed into the ship harder than before, making the hull groan. Shields holding, the engineer called. But not forever. Rhea narrowed her eyes at the shifting shape ahead. Magnify. The image expanded. For a moment, it looked empty. Then, faintly, the distortion rippled and something vast seemed to breathe. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't a ship. It was alive. Anya's voice cut through the comes. Captain, I think that's the Blip. Rhea had never heard the name before, but something in her gut twisted. What is it? I don't know, Anya said. But if the data from the alien graveyard is right, it doesn't just kill civilizations, it erases them. The crew stared at the thing in front of them. There were no eyes, no clear body, just a shifting mass of nothing that bent light and space around it. Then, slowly it turned. The pulse came again, 6 minutes apart. The distortion moved toward them, Captain. The weapons officer said quietly, It knows we're here. Rhea took a long breath. All hands to battle stations. Somewhere deep inside the Aegis Prime, ancient weapon systems hummed to life. Cannons unfolded along the hull, missile bays unsealed, and the ship's AI Helios activated fully for the first time in 20 years. Its voice was smooth and cold, contact approaching. Probability of survival without engagement, 0%. Then, let's make engagement count, Rhea said. The Titan warship turned to meet the oncoming shadow. The countdown clock ticked lower. 50 hours. 5 minutes between pulses and closing. The shadow filled more of the screen now. A vast distortion. Eating the stars? It didn't rush forward. It drifted with terrible calm like a predator that already knew the kill was certain. The next pulse slammed through the ship. The lights dimmed for a full second this time. A low hum echoed in the hull as though the Aegis Prime herself was groaning in pain. Field integrity at 84%, the engineer reported. If it keeps getting stronger, we'll lose shielding in under an hour. Suggestions? Rhea asked. Run, he said, but it'll be faster. Rhea ignored that. Weapons status? All primary systems ready, the weapons officer replied. But, Captain, still don't know if weapons will do anything to that thing. That's why we're going to find out. The ship's cannons rotated toward the distortion, locking onto whatever part of it could be considered a target. On the main display, data flickered. The sensors still couldn't measure its exact size or shape. The readings showed something bigger than the Aegis Prime, then smaller, then so massive it couldn't exist. The crew kept staring at the shifting image, their eyes drawn to the strange way light bent around it. One moment it seemed like empty space, the next it was as if something unimaginably vast was pressing right against them. Another pulse came. 4 minutes apart now. The crew tensed at the speed of the change. Helios spoke again. Captain, the signal's energy signature matches those found in the wreckage fields of the 43 extinct civilizations. Conclusion: entity is the termination factor. The words sat in the air like lead. Termination factor. Helios, Rhea said. Is it alive? Alive by some definitions, Helios replied. It interacts with space-time on a level comparable to biological feeding. Purpose unknown. Purpose seems pretty clear, Rhea muttered. The shadow twitched, if the movement could be called that. A ripple spread through the distortion. It's a slow wave that seemed to pass through the void itself. Then a shape emerged. It wasn't a face, not exactly. But the human brain, desperate for patterns, saw one anyway, a jagged curve like a mouth, a pair of faint hollows like eyes. The image lasted a heartbeat before it folded back into nothing. The pulse came again. 3 minutes, Captain, the navigator said. At this rate, it'll reach Earth in less than 30 hours. Rhea's voice stayed steady. Then we buy. Time, recommend caution, Helios said. Entity has not demonstrated offense capability yet. First strike may trigger escalation. It's already escalating, Rhea replied. And I don't plan to wait until it's over my planet to find out what it can do, she gave the order. The cannons fired. The silence of space shattered into brilliant lines of energy that streaked toward the distortion. The blasts hit. Or seemed to. For a moment the shadow rippled violently, its shape scattering into jagged shards of bending light. The crew held their breath. Then, slowly, the shards knit themselves back together, and the pulse came again. 2 minutes, Captain. The weapons officer said softly. I think we just made it angry. Rhea's gaze locked on the screen. The shadow was moving faster now. A silent rush straight toward the Titan warship. For the first time since she'd taken command, Rhea felt cold. She didn't look away when she spoke. All hands braced for contact. The distortion hit them without touching them. No collision, no impact, just a sudden warping of space itself. The stars beyond the viewport twisted into spirals, stretched thin, then snapped back into place. Every metal surface on the Aegis Prime screamed at once, a grinding vibration that rattled teeth and bones. Several crew members cried out, clutching their heads. Blood welled in one navigator's nose. A sensor station sparked and went dark. Shields at 50%, the engineer shouted. Whatever that was, it's not a weapon. It's tearing at space around us. Rhea gripped the railing hard enough that her knuckles ached. Helios. Threat assessment. The AI's voice came calm to calm. Entity demonstrates control over local space-time curvature. Range unknown. Lethality. Probability. Total. Translation, Rhea said. It can destroy us at will, Helios replied. Another pulse came, 1 minute apart. The sound was sharper now, no longer a low thump, but a high metallic crack that seemed to split the air. Everyone on the bridge flinched. The distortion moved again. This time, something detached from it. At first, it looked like more of the haze, but as it drew nearer, the haze condensed into a solid form, a black spear of nothingness, moving silently at impossible speed. Contact, inbound, the weapons officer yelled. Trajectory direct. Hit! Evasive! Rhea barked. The Titan warship heaved to the side, thrusters roaring. The black spear grazed the ship's port side and the deck shuddered violently. A section of the outer armor tore away into the void, glowing faintly. As though burned by cold fire. Loss of port plating decks 7 through 9, the engineer reported, hull breach sealed. But we can't take more hits like that. The shadow shifted, preparing to launch again. Rhea knew they couldn't keep dodging forever. They needed information, something to use against it, anything. Helios, she said, scanned the pulses. There has to be a pattern. There was a pause as the AI processed. Confirmed. Energy spikes follow fractal decay sequence. Projected convergence. Total energy release upon countdown completion. So when it hit 0, Rhea began. Planetary termination event, Helios finished. A message crackled over the secure channel. Anya Patel from the Helios array. Her voice was shaky, but urgent. Captain, we've been tracking residual energy from the pulses. They match a beacon signature from an extinct race, the same one whose graveyard you're heading toward. I think I think this thing follows the signals like a predator. Follows blood in the water. Rhea's mind clicked into gear. You're saying if we can throw it off the trail, we might buy time? Anya said. But it will keep hunting. Another black spear formed in the distortion. Rhea's decision was instant. Prepare the decoy pulse. Full amplification. Dump every scrap of energy we've got into it. The crew worked fast, rerouting power. From secondary systems, on the screen the shadow began to swell, the space around it rippling like a heat mirage. The next pulse came, 30 seconds apart now, and the shadow lunged. Decoy away. The comms officer shouted. From the belly of the Aegis Prime, a massive burst of energy flared outward, brighter than a star. The fake pulse raced into the dark, its signature screaming across subspace. The shadow hesitated. It tilted, or seemed to, toward the decoy signal. Then, with a sickening grace, it began to drift after it, slipping back into the deep void. The crew barely had time to breathe. Helios spoke again, voice still cold. Entity redirected. Estimated time until reacquisition of true target. 24 hours. Rhea exhaled slowly.
Loud.
We've bought a day. The relief lasted only a heartbeat before Helios added, Captain, the decoy pulse just passed through the outer edge of Earth's sensor range. It follows, it will still find us. Rhea's eyes stayed locked on the screen where the shadow was vanishing. Then, we'll make sure it doesn't, she said quietly. And in the silence that followed, the crew knew this wasn't over. They'd just made themselves the bait. The Aegis Prime drifted in the cold dark, her engines on low burn to avoid leaving a clear trail. The crew moved quietly, as if even their voices might call the thing back. Somewhere far behind them, the distortion followed the decoy pulse into the outer void. For the first time in hours, no pulse came. No vibration in the hull, no pressure in their skulls. It's just silence. It should have been comforting. It wasn't. Rhea stood at the center of the bridge, eyes fixed on the shifting data. Streams across the main display. 24 hours. That's what Helios had given them. A single day before the shadow realized it had been fooled, the science officer, Dr. Amani, studied the alien star map recovered from the graveyard records. She'd been staring at it so long her eyes were red. It's not random, she said. Finally, the civilizations it destroyed. There's a pattern. It's moving along a spiral path, system by system, each one closer to the galactic center. Earth's just the next stop. Rhea leaned closer. Why a spiral? Imani shook her head. No idea. But if the pattern holds, the blip will keep going after us, even if we run. Rhea didn't like the sound of that. Running was only a delay. Helios's voice broke in, soft but steady. Captain, new sensor readings. Energy spikes detected ahead, consistent with the signal's decay pattern. Source is not the entity. Not the entity? Rhea asked. The view shifted. Out in the darkness, a faint scatter of shapes appeared on long-range scans, dozens of them glinting in the weak light of a dying sun as they drew closer. The shapes became clear. Ships, hundreds of alien ships, all drifting dead. Their hulls were scorched and split, edges melted into strange flowing curves. Some had been torn clean in half. Others were punctured with holes the size of city blocks. It was a graveyard, God. The weapons officer whispered, they threaded their way through the wreckage, massive cruisers, needle-like scouts, battleships bristling with weapons, all silent, all frozen in death. Helios spoke again. Rex match designed schematics from extinct civilization in Var. Time of destruction. Approximately 70 standard years ago, cause. Identical to projected planetary termination event. 70 years, Rhea said softly. And it's still out here. They found the largest ship near the center of the debris. Field a battleship so massive it rivaled the Aegis Prime. Its hull was blackened, but a faint glow pulsed from. Within power signature, the engineer reported, minimal but stable. We can dock. Do it, Rhea said. The docking clamps latched onto the alien hull with a dull metallic thud. An away team moved through the airlock, their suit lights cutting through the pitch-black corridors. Inside, The walls were covered in strange markings, long curves and spirals. Repeating patterns carved deep into the metal. They found the bridge. Dozens of alien crew lay at their stations, frozen mid-action. The bodies were tall and thin, with elongated skulls and three-fingered hands. Their empty eyes seemed to follow the humans as they moved. The science officer brushed frost from a console and connected a translator. Static filled their helmets. Then a voice, not human, but trembling and desperate. "The signal has found us. The spiral cannot be broken. We burn the skies to hide. But it always finds the light." The message repeated, over and over. One of the crew shivered. They knew they were doomed. In the captain's chair, a data crystal was clenched in the alien's hand. They pried it loose and brought it back to the Aegis Prime. Helios processed it in seconds. Data contains incomplete schematics for an energy inversion weapon. Purpose appears to be to reflect the signal. "Reflect it where?" Rhea asked. Helios paused. "Toward the origin point." The crew exchanged glances. If they could reflect the pulse, maybe they could send the blip's own signal back to wherever it came from. But before Rhea could answer, the deck beneath their feet thrummed. The air seemed to grow heavy. The pulse was back. 1 minute apart. Helios' voice cut through the tension. "Captain, entity has reacquired our location." Rhea stared at the graveyard of dead warships outside the viewport. The blip had done this once before. Now it was coming for them. The pulse grew sharper, cutting through the Aegis Prime like a blade of soundless pressure. Every bulkhead seemed to hum. Every light flickered. The readings confirmed what the crew already felt in their bones. The blip was closing in fast. "Time to contact?" Rhea asked. The navigator's voice was tight. 18 minutes at current speed. That was less than they needed. The alien schematics from the data crystal were incomplete, damaged by time and whatever force had gutted the NVR fleet. Helios could piece them together, but it would take hours. Hours they didn't have. "Helios," Rhea said, "start the reconstruction. Prioritize anything that lets us test fire." "Understood," the AI replied. The crew worked frantically. On screen, fragments of alien engineering rotated and snapped into place like a puzzle built in 3 dimensions. Another pulse. It 50 seconds apart. "Captain." Dr. Imani's voice came over, comes from the science lab, the patterns accelerating faster than before. "It's like it's angry." "It's not like it's angry," Rhea said. "It is angry," Helios interrupted. Long-range scan detects spatial distortion. Entity mass approaching from aft quadrant. The bridge view rotated, and the shadow was there, massive, formless, dragging the starlight around it like a cloak. "Helios," Rhea said, "is the inversion weapon functional yet?" 38% complete, the AI answered. "Insufficient for deployment." That left only one option. Delay. "Helm," Rhea ordered. "Set course for the Sigma 4 star. Maximum burn." The crew glanced at each other. They all knew Sigma 4, a dying red giant, its core unstable. Flying into its corona was suicide. "We're not surviving that heat," the engineer warned. "We're not surviving the blip either," Rhea replied. "The star's M output will mask our signal long enough for Helios to finish the weapon." The Aegis Prime roared to life, her engines pushing her forward. The massive red sphere of Sigma 4 grew in the viewport, its swirling surface boiling. With storms the size of continents, the blip followed. The pulses became constant now. One after another, each one rattling the ship. Systems began to fail. Secondary sensors went dark. Weapons controls lagged. Life support alarms chimed. Entering Corona in 30 seconds. The helm officer called. The red light grew brighter, flooding the bridge. Outside, the void shimmered. With plasma arcs as the ship crossed the threshold, the heat slammed into them. Armor plating glowed orange. Hull temperature climbed at a rate the engineer didn't bother announcing. Everyone could see it on the readouts. Helios spoke. "Entity. At threshold of star's gravity well?" "It is observing." On the tactical screen, the shadow held just outside the corona, drifting like a vulture watching prey. The crew worked without looking at it. Sweat rolled down their faces in the stifling heat. Helios, Rhea asked. Weapon status? 74%, the AI replied. The ship shuddered violently. Not from the star, from something else. Captain, the weapons officer said slowly. I think it's sending something into the star. The view screen shifted, magnifying the surface of Sigma 4. A black spear, like the one that had torn through their hull earlier, was sinking into the churning plasma. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the star flinched. It was the only way to describe it, a massive shudder, as if something had struck its heart. The surface bulged outward, storms twisting violently. The blip was hurting the star. Helios. Rhea said, How long until 89%? The AI answered. But Captain, entity activity will trigger stellar collapse. On the display, the red giant surface began to split, light spilling through cracks in the plasma. Rhea's voice was iron. Then we finish the weapon before the star finishes us. The final pieces of the alien schematics locked together. Helios's tone didn't change, but the words carried a weight that made the crew straighten. Inversion weapon complete. Ready to deploy. Inside, the blip began to move toward them. Rhea's hand hovered over the firing command. Target locked. Locked, Helios said. The bridge was silent except for the groaning of the ship's overheating hull. Fire. The Aegis Prime roared, and a blinding wave of inverted energy blasted from her forward array. Streaking toward the distortion it hit, the shadow rippled violently this time. The pulses stopped. And then, very slowly, a new signal began to play. The same pulse, but reversed. Helios's voice came quiet. Signal now traveling away from Earth, toward the galactic rim. The crew cheered too early, because even as the shadow began to drift back, the red giant beneath them started to collapse. The alarm started screaming before anyone spoke. The red giant was tearing itself apart. On the main display, the star's surface twisted into spirals of molten plasma, collapsing inward toward a single blinding point. The heat inside the Aegis Prime surged beyond safe limits. The deck plates burned through the soles of boots. Helm, get us out now. Rhea barked, Engines at full, the helm officer shouted back. But the gravity well's already pulling us in. Outside, titanic arcs of fire tore free from the star's surface, whipping past the warship like the lashes of some furious god. The light was so bright it burned after images into their eyes, even through the viewport's filters. Helios, give me a course, Rhea demanded. The AI's voice was steady but clipped, recommending emergency wormhole jump unstable. High probability of hull compromise. No alternative. The blip was shrinking in the distance, still moving away under the push of its own reversed signal. But they couldn't afford to celebrate. The star's collapse was accelerating. Set the jump, Rhea ordered. The navigation system lit up. With warnings read across every display, energy surged into the Aegis Prime's core. The ship trembled violently. Somewhere deep inside the hull, a bolt tore free and clanged across the deck. Another pulse, faint this time, whispered. Across the comes. Everyone froze for half a second. It's the blip, Dr. Imani said quietly. It's still listening. Rhea shoved that thought aside. Execute. The wormhole tore open ahead of them, a swirling vortex of silver and black. The collapsing star roared behind, its light turning the void blood red. The Aegis Prime plunged through. For a heartbeat, it was nothing. No light, no sound, no up or down. Space folded around them in impossible ways, stars bending into curves and lines. Some of the crew swore they heard voices in the static. Others swore they saw shapes moving inside the wormhole walls. Then, with a bone-rattling crack, they burst, back into real space. The bridge lights flickered. Systems reset. Several consoles smoked from overload. But they were alive. Helios spoke after a pause. Location. Sol system. Position. Lunar orbit. Estimated time until entity's reacquisition. Of target, 6 hours. The crew's brief relief evaporated instantly. 6 hours. Rhea said. We reversed the signal. That should have correctioned, Helios interrupted. Signal reflection delayed entity's approach. However, there is a secondary beacon. The room went cold. Anya Patel's voice came over the secure channel from the Helios array. She didn't waste time. Captain, you need to know we've detected another pulse. It's weaker, but it's coming from inside the Sol system. Rhea's hands clenched. From where? There was a pause on the line. Earth, Anya said. It's on Earth. 4. A moment, no one moved. The implications sank in. The blip didn't need to find them. It had already marked home. Helios, Rhea said, her voice low and dangerous. Track it. Confirmed, the AI replied. Source is stationary. Located in the ruins of the old Anchorage Array, Alaska region. Rhea didn't hesitate. Helm, plot, intercept course. All hands prepare for atmospheric entry. Looked at a shrinking image of the blip on the main display, far out in the dark, but moving closer even now. They had 6 hours to find the beacon. 6 hours before the thing that had ended 43 civilizations arrived over Earth. No one on the bridge. Said it, but they all felt it. This was no longer a space battle. This was home's last defense. The Aegis Prime cut through Earth's upper atmosphere like a falling blade, heat shields blazing orange against the dawn sky. Clouds shredded in its wake as the warship descended over the Pacific and banked hard. Toward the frozen north below, Alaska's vast wilderness stretched out in white silence. The old Anchorage Array lay buried beneath decades of snow and ice, a relic from the early days of deep space listening. It's abandoned after the new orbital systems took over. But something in those ruins was still awake. Helios, status of the beacon, Rhea asked. Active, the AI replied. Pulse cycle every 58 seconds. Transmission strength increasing exponentially. Its estimated time until detection by entity, 4 hours, 12 minutes. That number hit like a physical blow. They had barely 2 hours to find and disable it before the blip could lock onto Earth's exact position again. The warship hovered over a jagged ridge and lowered its landing struts. Squadron of drop shuttles peeled away from the belly hangars. Engines screaming against the icy wind, Rhea led the first team herself. The ground crunched under their boots as they pushed into the half-buried structure. Walls of corroded steel groaned under the weight of snowdrifts. The entry corridor reeked of cold metal and decay inside. The darkness swallowed their helmet lights. The array's central chamber was a cathedral of broken machines, towering receiver dishes, shattered consoles, thick coils of cable trailing across the floor like dead snakes, and in the middle, something that did not belong. It was a black spire, 3 meters tall, its surface smooth and wet-looking, as if it had just been pulled from deep water. Thin streams of frost curled away from it, vanishing into the air. Every 58 seconds, it pulsed, a faint ripple in reality, not light, not sound, but something that made teeth ache and vision blur. Dr. Imani scanned it, her voice trembling in Rhea's comes. Composition unknown. No seams, no circuitry. It's grown, like coral or bone. Helios, Rhea said. How do we shut it down? The AI answered without hesitation. Recommend total destruction. However, entity has likely placed failsafes. Attempted destruction may trigger immediate location broadcast. Rhea studied the spire. So if we hit it, we might bring the blip down on us instantly. That is correct, Helios said. A low, vibrating hum filled the chamber. The spire's surface shifted, not physically, but in perception. Patterns. Like spiral galaxies swirled across it for a heartbeat before vanishing again. The pulse came faster now. 50 seconds, Imani said. It's speeding up. Rhea's mind raced. They couldn't dismantle it without tools they didn't have. They couldn't risk leaving it intact. They couldn't drag it out. It was fused to the floor. Helios, she said, how much damage would a core overload from the Aegis Prime cause at this range? Complete eradication of the beacon and the array. And approximately 30 kilometers of surrounding terrain, Helios replied. Collateral would be significant. Rhea's jaw tightened. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. But it would guarantee the blip doesn't. Get the signal. That is highly probable, Helios said. The comms crackled with the voice of the bridge officer still aboard the Titan warship. "Captain, you should see this. Long-range sensors show the entity changing course again. It's accelerating. Estimated arrival over Earth. 2 hours? 2 hours." The exact time they had before the beacon's full broadcast, Rhea looked at the black spire. At the snow shifting in the cold wind that swept through the ruined chamber. "Prepare the ship for overload," she said. "But keep the engines hot. If we time this right, we blow it and run." Her team began retreating toward the shuttle, their breath fogging in the air. The pulse came again, 45 seconds apart now. Above the clouds, the Aegis Prime's reactors began their slow, deadly climb toward critical. The great warship hummed like a waking beast. Rhea cast one last look at the spire before boarding the shuttle. The thing almost seemed to watch her, though it had no eyes. The faint spirals slid across its surface once more, and for a moment, she thought she saw an image. Not the blip. Earth. Then the pulse came again, and the vision vanished in less than 2 hours. One of them, the beacon or the ship, would be gone, and if she failed, Earth would be next.